This is Moko. It's made by the same people who made Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, and Brawl Stars. It's a completely free-to-play Monster Hunter, and the name of the game is to hunt monsters in style. I really love the vibes and the gameplay loop, so I wanted to start making some videos on it. In this video, I'm going to be hunting on a map called Corrupted Square, and I'm going to be using the Technofist to get my daily jobs done. So sit back and relax while I read some Reddit stories and hunt some monsters. Quit my job on the spot for the first time. I see stories all the time about people walking out of jobs and never going back, and I've always thought, oh, I could never. Until now. Background. I left education at 18 and went straight into retail. Worked my way up to management over 10 years at the same company and then got made redundant. Working my first job since being made redundant, and I have never witnessed or experienced such poor, unprofessional management like it. After weeks of biting my tongue and keeping my head down and trying to not care, I finally snapped. Cleared the area I was working early, and gathered my things and told the senior manager I was leaving early and I wouldn't be returning. Most of the behavior I experienced wasn't even directed at me. It was the way that there were managers talking bad about staff to other staff. They enabled negative gossip sessions and breached confidentiality by discussing absences/poor performers/interviews with staff. I just couldn't stand for it. Now, I'm not naive. I know gossiping happens amongst teams. It's natural and you'll never completely stop it. But to be in a management position and to be the center of it, I just couldn't believe it. Am I a snowflake? Or good on me for telling them straight? I think I just see it differently as I've been a manager, so I know how detrimental this is to a workplace. This workplace specifically complained about its unusually high staff turnover, and we've been short-staffed for months. And now I understand why. This is so expected of just any work environment, and it's very sad. At my current job, it really sucks how management does not talk to employees directly. It seems that everything they do is done behind other people's backs. They'll complain about certain employees to other employees and just never say anything directly to the employee as a way to improve or a coaching moment, and then are surprised whenever the employee doesn't improve. Personally, if I was in this person's shoes, I probably wouldn't have done the exact same thing they did. I probably would have just kept my head down and done my job and gone home at the end of the day. But honestly, I kind of respect OP for this because just dealing with this on a constant daily basis is kind of ridiculous, especially whenever you're at a new job. And it sucks that it's the management that's doing it. But to answer their question, I do not think that they're a snowflake. The people at my new job are berating me. Am I overreacting or should I leave? I, F23, recently just graduated with a bachelor's degree and found a job related to what I want to do. It seemed like a great entry-level opportunity as I have no experience in my field. With the current job market and generally just how difficult it can be for new graduates to find a job, I felt extremely lucky. The first couple of days of training went well, but then it changed after that. The person training me became very rude and hostile towards me, calling me slurs, stupid, and slow, simply because I couldn't remember one or two things out of all the information he had given me, or maybe because I was not fast enough at my task to his liking. But when speaking to the boss, I was actually faster than most new people and was told I was doing really well. Now, the boss. She also has berated me and put me down in front of coworkers. Here's some backstory. She's actually married to the owner and she runs HR and is technically my boss. My first week on the job, I was told my shift started at a specific time, so I showed up every day at that time and there were no issues. Then, the following week, she messaged me, starting Monday, you will work at 6:30 a.m. But when I show up on Tuesday at 6:30 a.m., I got yelled at because I was apparently supposed to text her the previous night and ask her what time my shift was. I was not told of this, and I didn't think I had to because starting Monday usually means the whole week, right? So now I have to text her every night by 8 p.m. to see what time I'm coming in the next morning for work. There have been many instances where I got reprimanded for not being able to read her mind. For example, when I was asked to grab something in a dark room that I couldn't see in, she berated me in front of coworkers saying, "Do you not know how to work a light switch?" and then made me walk around to every light switch in the office and turn it on and off. They also have refused to increase my pay from the original training pay like they had promised, and my hours are below part-time when I applied for the full-time position. I financially just can't afford to stay, and I want to know if I'm overreacting, or is this something I can get over if I keep my head down, or should I run? Trust me, I know the job market really sucks right now, but this position is just not worth staying in. They ended up showing their true colors very early on whenever you were training. In a professional environment, it's weird for a trainer to become rude and hostile, and calling you slurs is just not acceptable in a work environment or in any environment for that matter. And with the boss saying that you're really fast but then treating you like you're really dumb, just goes to show how two-faced she could be if you stayed there for longer. I think the craziest part about this story is that whenever you couldn't figure out where a light switch was in the room, they made you go throughout the entire office and switch on and off every single light switch. That is just literal beratement and harassment at that point. They're just berating you for a common mistake, I would say. You're not going to know where every single light switch is, especially in a new office building. So no, I do not think OP is overreacting here. So my advice here would be to find a new job. And obviously don't just quit, but try and find a job before you do. Because like you said, this job economy is not great, and this economy in general is also not great. So I would try and find a new job while you're still there, and then put in a 2 weeks, or just hop on over to a company that will hopefully treat you better and give you the hours that you deserve, especially after you have a bachelor's degree. So yeah, no, not overreacting. My former coworker just resigned live on camera during the company all hands meeting, and I am still not okay. Let me tell you about someone I used to work with. I'm gonna call her V. V started at our company, mid-size HR tech firm, fully remote, the kind of place that puts people first in their mission statement and then immediately proves they don't mean it. As a senior implementation analyst, she was good, like very good. The kind of person who figures out what's broken before anyone else notices it's broken and then fixes it quietly while everyone else is still arguing about whether it's actually broken or not. About a year into her tenure, the company decided they wanted to build out a client strategy function. New department, new direction, huge vision. They tapped the V for it because obviously. Who else? She'd basically been doing half the work already without the title. Here's where it gets fun. They gave her a new title, they gave her a raise. What they did not give her was the raise that position actually warranted. Because B, being the thorough person that she was, did her research. The raise they gave her landed her $5,000 below the published floor for the role she had just been promoted into. Not the ceiling, the floor. She flagged it, professionally. She was told that the budget was what it was and they'd revisit it at a review time. She let it go because V is a professional and she had a department to build. So she built it. By herself, for 6 months she was the entire client strategy department. She built the workflows, the client-facing processes, the internal documentation. She made suggestions about how to scale it, a tracking dashboard, a cross-team SOP library, things that would have made everyone's lives easier. Every single suggestion was met with some version of "we love this, we just don't have the bandwidth to support it right now." What they had the bandwidth was for the monthly all-hands-on meeting. Big production, slides, cameras on, the whole thing. One of the segments was called the Wins Wall. They'd pull shoutouts from the company recognition channel and feature 3 to 5 people with their photo, what they were recognized for, and a quote. Winners got a $25 Amazon gift card. V was in that recognition channel constantly. Coworkers shouted her out, clients sent in feedback about her specifically, she was mentioned by name more times than almost anyone in the department cycle. She was featured on the win walls exactly 0 times in 6 months. 1 month, her slide was literally on the screen. She could see her own photo, and the person running the meeting got confused and said, "Oh, my mistake," and moved on. Just skipped her. Her face on the screen for the whole company to see, and they moved on. She stayed professional, she stayed focused, and she kept building. Then the company announced that they were finally going to hire someone to help her out in the client strategy department. V was relieved, genuinely. She was stretched thin and she wanted support. Then, she found the job posting. The floor of the salary range for the new hire, the person coming in to assist her in the department she built, reporting the function she created, was $5,000 more than what V was currently making. And the ceiling was $30,000 more. V had been holding that department together with hope and caffeine for 6 months. Whoever walked in off the street to help her was going to be making anywhere from $5,000 to $30,000 more than her before they'd spent a single day figuring out the system she built. V updated her resume that same afternoon. It took her about 6 weeks, and she didn't rush. She was precise about it. She found a role, a director-level role, not manager, a director, at a company that paid her more than the ceiling of what she could be made at the old place, even in its best-case scenario. She gave herself a week between accepting the offer and the last day she'd have access to the company system, and she did her math very carefully because the monthly all-hands meeting fell inside that window. The all-hands slide lived in the shared presentation platform. V had the login, and she'd helped build the template. She knew exactly where the Wins Wall slides lived in that deck. 3 minutes before the meeting started, V added one more slide to the Wins Wall. Her photo, her name. Recognized for relentless improvement. The copy read something like, over the past 6 months, V single-handedly built the client strategy function from nothing, was recognized by colleagues and clients more times than she can count, and she was never once featured on this wall. She used that energy to find a director-level role at a company that understands her value before she walked in the door. Today is her last day. The Windows walls worked, it turns out. Just not at the direction you expect. The quote at the bottom was from herself. She logged out from the work laptop and she joined in from her phone. She sat on camera looking completely unbothered while the meeting ran through its agenda. When the presenter got to the wins wall and clicked to see V's slide, there was a pause. One of those pauses where you can see someone's eyes moving faster than their mouth. The chat started going, and V took a screenshot. 30 seconds later, while the presenter was still visibly processing what she was reading, V's resignation email landed in HR, her manager, the presenter, and the CEO simultaneously. Effective immediately, a personal email, return address for the equipment included. She sat on camera for the remaining 7 minutes of the meeting, and then she logged off. Last I heard, she's 3 months into a new role and thriving. The Winswalls slide is apparently still a topic of conversation at that company. I think about her at least once a week. This is honestly one of the better stories I've read on Reddit. It's just very, very nice to see someone get a win after being treated so terribly by a certain company. So it's nice to know that even though you get treated really badly by a company, that you might be able to find somewhere out there who will treat you better and actually know what your value is. Especially someone like this who is able to build up an entire department all by herself. It just sucks that it had to come to something like a new hire getting $30,000 more than her a year for her to realize that she needed to leave. Because frankly, after not being featured on this wins wall for 6 months after being the only person in your department and seemingly thriving in this department is kind of crazy. But yeah, let's all give a little bit of a shout out to V because this was a crazy underdog story. Am I overreacting by being lazy at work? Alright, so I started working at this company 10 years ago. Everything started off great. We got some property, we do things, we break things, we fix things, yada yada yada. Then we sell the property. It doesn't matter. Years go by and we buy and sell things regularly. Past 2 years, we have stopped buying properties. My list keeps getting shorter and shorter with every sell. I asked the boss man what's up several times and I'm never getting a straight answer. Naturally, this has me worried about the future. Everyone else is acting like it's fine and we will eventually buy more things. The young hire even buys a house that he can barely afford. So, I stopped working as hard as I usually do. I'm really dragging my heels at every chance I get. I read a book and napped the other day when I called in for work from home. Did absolutely nothing productive, for the company at least. I applied to other jobs while I was there. For some reason, I'm starting to feel guilty. I know this company is going to lay me off when my list is gone, so why should I bother trying to finish it quickly? Would anyone else feel guilty about this? Everyone is acting like they usually do. One old guy retired and his workload got absorbed by others. No mention of replacing him at all. So immediately, not overreacting. And I would even go as far as to say that this OP is underreacting. This job is clearly about to go under, so it would be very smart to start applying for other jobs and potentially just quit sooner than later. If your workload is getting shorter and shorter and they're not giving you anything new and they expect you to finish it at the same pace as before, then it's just not worthwhile to stay there. You don't want to feel secure and then get done with your work, feel pride in your work, and then end up getting laid off for literally nothing that was your fault. So yeah, honestly, I would recommend to keep dragging your feet just because it would be worthwhile to stay at that job as long as possible so you can find a job that can pay you something similar. So no, not overreacting. Interviews tell you everything. I had a job interview yesterday scheduled at 5 p.m. I got ready, I drove 40 minutes, and I showed up at 4:50. I walk in and I see the manager sitting at a table and I go to him. He barely looks up from his laptop. I hold out my hand to shake his and introduce myself. He barely makes eye contact and limply shakes my hand and then tells me I can sit down. I made a light comment about how wild the traffic was today and he just says, yeah. He asked me how long I've lived in the area and if I'm working now and what my availability is. After that, he just goes, great, I'll look over all of this and I'll get back to you tomorrow. It was 4:57 when I left. I'm so glad I didn't arrive earlier and that I wasn't whatever person he was hoping I would be. I would have ended up with another toxic boss. This place is always hiring. Why are companies like this? And then OP left a comment and I just love it. I emailed him back. Thank you for spending 5 minutes with me today. I've decided to go with another position. Best. I had to reject him before he rejected me. Luckily, I've only had one job interview that was like this, and I didn't take the position, but it was just pretty similar. Like, I show up kind of early, I go in, and everyone's just kind of staring at me. No one, like, really seems very friendly or anything. I go to the interview. Basically, the entire, like, job posting was a lie. The only thing they did not lie about was the pay, but everything else seemed kind of like BS. It was listed as a full-time position. When I got there, they told me they were only able to give me 19 hours a week for a lead position. And the person interviewing me was talking about how the other leads, all of them had second jobs. And they kind of expected me to have a second job as well. And there's nothing wrong with having two jobs, but whenever you're in a position of management or a lead position, you would kind of expect to be able to live off of that, or at least have it be a full-time position. They did offer to give me a little bit more than the starting rate, but after they told me that it was a part-time position, I told them that I wouldn't be able to take it because it was like 40 minutes away, and I was not about to deal with a 19-hour position for like 25 cents more than what I was making at my job now. Boss lost it when I put in my 2 weeks. A couple months ago, I talked to my manager about relocating to another city and maintaining my position remotely. Currently on a hybrid schedule in a different city. Didn't think it was a big deal because many employees have done this in the past as long as it's approved and as long as you're in good standing. I always have been and have been at my job for 6+ years. Anyway, the company was really weird about my request, and my manager talked to me one-on-one and essentially said layoffs were coming and they wanted to make sure I wasn't going to leave, and I assured her that wasn't my plan. I really did plan on staying, but it felt inappropriate to ask me if I had been job searching. Even if I was planning on leaving, I wouldn't have said anything because who knows how long it would take to find a job, and why would I volunteer for the chopping block? Anyway, fast forward to layoffs. They laid off my direct report while I was on PTO. This blew up my PTO by calling me and filling me in and asking me to be on the call where they laid her off while I was traveling. I did know that her getting laid off was a possibility, but I assumed they would have gotten someone else from the company to help fill in for some of her tasks. I was so devastated that they laid her off. She was the best direct report I have ever managed. They also laid off 20% of the company and said since then morale has been at an all-time low. With my direct report laid off, I took on her entire workload with no pay raise, and they said raises were frozen for the foreseeable future. They also laid people off last year and raises were also frozen, so I haven't had a raise in 2 years. Anyway, the bottom line is that with my direct report, I feel like I had a path at the company and a purpose, but now I don't feel like that, and I feel like I'm doing all this work alone, and for what? Fast forward to now. I got a job offer yesterday that I'm really excited about. It aligns with my professional goals and had a great culture fit with all 6 people I talked to. I went to my manager to put in my 2 weeks, and she acted out of line. She said she was disappointed in me and that if I would have told her about it earlier, she could have saved my direct report's job. Obviously, I didn't know earlier that I would have had a job offer, and my former direct report texted me to let me know that she got a new job offer with a 40% salary bump. My manager told me that I was putting her in a bad position since I am doing 2 jobs that no one else on the team can do. I kept things professional, and I told her that I had changed my mind since our conversation, because layoffs changed the situation drastically by increasing my workload and taking away someone who I worked very well with. I told her I was dedicated to help with the transition plan, but she responded with, "We can have another conversation about this later, but right now I need you to leave my office." This felt so unprofessional and out of pocket. She has also ignored me today and skipped every meeting I've been a part of. The best part is that she's only reassuring me that I made the right decision to leave. I'm having a conversation with her today that she put on my calendar. I tried to explain myself today, but she didn't want to listen and acted very emotionally. So any advice on how to approach this conversation? Also, the new job was a 25% pay increase, but it was never about the money. That's just a nice benefit. I think the best course of action here is to just keep everything professional. Someone in the comments made a really good point. There's a lot of goals here from higher ups From your direct managers, you're being told that you need to do your job and your direct reports. But from your manager's job, there are managers telling them what to do. So they're most likely having a lot of high expectations as well. And now that they don't have someone else to cover for that department, then of course it's going to be a little bit stressful for them. But that being said, if they don't have other people who know how to do multiple departments, that seems like a them problem. Because that just seems like improper planning and also poor management, in my opinion. And not to mention getting pretty upset during a pretty common workplace conversation. I would say so anyway. People quit all the time, so it shouldn't be unexpected to have people quit, especially after there's layoffs and no raises after 2 years. I think it should be kept professional. And even if there are more emotional outbursts from your manager, I would suggest keeping it professional and either suggesting to have this conversation at a different time or to follow through with your transition plans. Just got fired. So I just got fired recently and it's been really hard to find work, as you could imagine. However, the environment was toxic and I was treated poorly while I was there. My boss was micromanaging and controlling and overly critical. For example, she would give vague instructions on a task and then get upset because I didn't do it a certain way. This would lead to her being rude towards me. She would also have certain expectations that would constantly change, which is impossible to meet. I would also get scrutinized if I did or didn't ask questions. If I did ask questions, she would make me feel dumb and tell me it's a simple task. But then if I didn't ask questions, it was impossible to meet her elusive expectations. This is just some of the things she did that made it hard to work there. Has anyone else had to deal with toxic work environments or bad bosses? Has anyone else dealt with a toxic work environment or a bad boss? And if so, what did you do or wish you had done to better support yourself? I also want to know for the future, just in case. Boy, oh boy, have I had bad toxic work environments. I think everyone has had pretty crappy work environments, right? Like, especially dealing with bad bosses. At my last job, I had a particularly bad boss that has really stuck with me and really shaped how I want to look for management and what I look for in a good boss. Not because this manager was a good boss, but because this manager was like the complete opposite. And just for clarity's sake, everyone under him would understand what I'm talking about if I asked them. There would be days where he would come in and he would be in a really good mood. He would be a very great boss, right? And then other days, he would come in a terrible mood and it would just shape the rest of your day. I once had a coworker who told me that he wishes he was just in a bad mood all the time because then you would know what to expect every day. But having a bipolar boss go from one mood to another basically on a daily basis kind of just really puts you in an uncomfortable situation because you don't know if you're going to come in and your boss is going to be in a good mood, and if your boss is in a good mood, then you know your day will go by fine. But if he's in a bad mood, then you know it won't go by well at all. My personal issues I had with him was when I first started working there, I was kind of above their expectations, I guess. I didn't really stay on one task for very long, like while training me. I was pretty consistent at picking things up, and then they eventually had me do one of the harder tasks, and I picked that up pretty fast as well. But there was one position that I liked doing more than anything else. It was something that I was really good at, and also I just enjoyed doing it because it made my day go by really fast. But of course, because management didn't have anyone to do one of the harder tasks and I was pretty good at it, they had me do it. For a while this was fine, but after a couple of months of doing this, I ended up having to deal with a really annoying coworker. I didn't have any issues with her like personally, or even in general as a coworker, but whenever I had to work directly with her, it kind of became a little bit daunting. She would kind of dump all of the extra stuff on me that I did not want to do and also wasn't as good at doing at the time because I just started out. And on top of that, it felt like she relied on me a little bit too much to pick up on her slack. And it was kind of weird, right? Because I didn't really realize that that's what was happening until other coworkers started pointing it out to me. At some point, they ended up calling her out for a little bit, and things did get a little bit better. But one day, I was having a particularly bad day, like I just did not want to be at the job. And my boss noticed and said something like, "Hey, what's wrong, man?" I was like, "Oh, I just don't like doing this position that much." And then he asked me why, and I explained to him it's just like the position isn't really my thing, and also I didn't really like working with my other coworker. And just in a very blatant show of unprofessionalism, he went behind my back and ended up telling that coworker what I had said, how I didn't like working with her. And for a while, it kind of like strained the relationship we had, but we ended up getting over it. But yeah, like I said, I think everyone has had to deal with bad bosses, and I hope that no one's ever really had to deal with bosses that terrible. Honestly, this wasn't meant to be about work stories specifically, but after a couple of work related stories, I figured it fit the vibe of Moko. I hope y'all like this one, and I hope y'all would consider subscribing. It would go a long way, and honestly, time got away from me, and I'm finishing this video the night before I plan on uploading it, and it's currently past 3 a.m. But if y'all have any work stories, make sure y'all comment them down below, and I'll see y'all in another video next week. Night, guys.